Former U.S. President Donald Trump is back inside a New York courtroom this hour, defending his business dealings and empire in a civil financial fraud case. Now, here's a live look outside the courtroom where the trial is now currently underway. The case goes to the heart of Trump's image and operations, and it was obvious when he spoke with reporters that he is angry.
Former President Trump is back in court for the third day of his civil fraud trial, and things are not looking too great for him. A judge has already determined that Trump, along with his sons and other executives, engaged in some dishonest practices, leading to a ruling that cancels their business certificates in New York.
Federal District Judge Tanya Chutkan denied the former president's motion that she recuse herself from his election subversion trial. In her ruling, Judge Chutkan said that her comments made during the sentencing of two January 6 defendants were not evidence of bias, as Trump attorneys had claimed. The court, she writes, has never taken the position the defense ascribes to it that former President Trump should be prosecuted and imprisoned. Now, this comes, of course, after a New York judge's summary judgment yesterday that the Trump business empire was built on fraudulently and often comically inflated valuations of assets and now must be dissolved.
The trial now aims to figure out the extra penalties Trump and the others could face. Right now, they are in the middle of cross-examining an accountant who played a big role in putting together Trump's financial statements, which the judge has already labeled as fraudulent. That is a difficult situation for Trump's attorney, Jesus Suarez.
How that happens, not yet clear. The New York judge today gave the defense 20 more days on top of the 10 days they'd already had to put forward a plan for putting the Trump organization into receivership. Meantime, the rest of the civil trial, which could result in a $250 million civil penalty, goes on. Whatever happens next, the judge's fraud ruling has certainly knocked down some of the foundation upon which Donald Trump's business was built over the years and how he portrayed himself.
Donald Trump has once again been found in contempt for violating the gag order in his criminal hush money trial. The judge issued that ruling as court got underway in Manhattan within the last hour. Trump has already been fined $9,000 for 9 previous violations of the order. In his ruling today, Judge Juan Merchan threatened to jail the former president if the violations continue.
Making a campaign speech or making disparaging comments about him or his staff. Instead of answering, Trump launched into a 5-minute speech that flouted many of these rules. Directing his comments to the judge, Trump said, quote, "You have your own agenda. I certainly understand that. You can't listen for more than 1 minute." After this, the judge told Trump's attorneys to, quote, "control your client."
Trump is on trial for allegedly falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels in the lead-up to the 2016 election.
It wasn't until almost 12 years after the affair allegedly occurred that the world first learned of the allegations of hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. In January 2018, the Wall Street Journal reported that in the weeks before the 2016 election, Donald Trump had arranged a $130,000 payment to the adult film star to keep her from publicly discussing their alleged 2006 encounter. Later, former Trump attorney Michael Cohen testified that Trump directed him to make payments to Daniels, quote, "for the principal purpose of influencing the election."
On a broader scale, it is clear that Trump's political standing is feeling the heat, especially after that latest ruling from the judge. The judge pointed out that without proper deterrence, Trump and his co-defendants might just keep committing fraud. To back this up, he imposed a hefty penalty of $355 million on them and barred Trump from running any corporations in New York for the next 3 years.
Is on the hook for $354 million, obviously below what Letitia James was seeking after these months of proceedings that happened in downtown Manhattan, but nevertheless a significant amount of money. David, as our team is pouring through this ruling from the judge, it also appears that Donald Trump's 2 eldest sons, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, who were running the company while their father was in the White House, both boys, David, on the hook for $4 million apiece. Now, the other part of this ruling from the judge, 92 pages that our team is pouring over at the moment, it says that Donald Trump cannot do any business related to real estate in New York for 3 years, and each of the boys, each 2 years apart, can also not do business in New York. David?
Could not get worse for him. Trump has been found in contempt of court for violating a gag order related to his hush money trial. This ruling came down just as things were getting underway in Manhattan. And given that he has already faced fines totaling $9,000 for similar violations, it is not a great look.
Development in Donald Trump's ongoing criminal hush money trial, the former U.S. president has been fined $9,000 for contempt of court. Justice Juan Merchan imposed the fine for Trump's violation of a gag order, which was set to prevent him from criticizing witnesses and other individuals connected to the case. The fine targets 9 specific online statements made by Trump, charging $1,000 per.
Juan Merchan has now suggested that Trump could even face jail time if he does not stop these violations. For those who might not be up to speed, this trial is looking into Trump allegedly falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels right before the 2016 election. Looming warnings about the potential for incarceration, along with the many court order violations he has already accumulated. The pressure is growing on Donald Trump as New York Attorney General Letitia James takes the first step towards seizing some of his assets if he cannot meet Monday's deadline to post his $464 million bond.
General Letitia James saying she's prepared to seize Donald Trump's assets, including his buildings, if he doesn't pay the money.
Filing documents to lay the groundwork to take over his golf course and a large estate in Westchester County.
To pay off the judgment. Then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Say he faces insurmountable difficulties in obtaining a bond. 30 insurance companies have turned him down because he does not have enough cash, and they will not accept his properties as collateral. To top it all off, there is an upcoming ruling from the Supreme Court that could throw another challenge into the works for Trump. It is starting to feel like a real legal maze for him, a multi-court challenge as he tries to navigate through these complicated waters. The judge found that to secure lower borrowing rates, Trump and his team were submitting absolutely false financial information, and this was a big driver of the fraud. It is a pretty detailed breakdown spanning across 92 pages of key findings. Let us break down the latest developments in the Donald Trump civil fraud case. So the judge recently made a major ruling which turned out to be a lengthy document covering about 92 pages. The big takeaway here is that he has decided Trump and the others involved owe a staggering total of $362 million. For Trump specifically, it is around $354 million, pretty much in line with what the New York Attorney General was aiming for, which was $370 million. That is a significant sum. Constitution is much more important than jail. It is not even close. I will do that sacrifice any day. Jail for former President Trump. The judge in his hush money criminal trial says it is a possibility. Trump was held in contempt for a 10th time on Monday, this time for publicly criticizing the jury. The judge says the fines against him for violating a gag order just are not working. The judge warns the court will have to consider a jail sentence. Also, it is worth mentioning that the judge found Eric Trump, Donald's son, liable as well. The tension is escalating for Trump because the Attorney General is getting ready to seize some of his assets. They have already filed the necessary documents to potentially take over his golf course and a large estate in Westchester County. Trump's team claims he is in a tough spot trying to secure that bond, with 30 insurance companies saying no because he does not have sufficient cash and they are not interested in accepting his properties as collateral. This judge should change his ruling because Palm Beach County said he was totally wrong, and he was ruling based on them. He ruled we did not even have a chance to testify. I got a call last week. Sir, we lost part of the case. He said the trial did not even start. The trial starts, I guess, today. He ruled that we lost a big part of the case because he is a Democrat club politician. He is a Democrat operative, and he is a disgrace to people that call themselves judges. The ruling really shifts the landscape of the case. The judge's backing of significant fraud penalties and the potential for asset seizures is a game changer. There's a clear warning about the risk of criminal contempt, and many are saying this puts Trump's political future in a difficult position. The documentation included in the ruling is substantial, emphasizing the judge's view that unless Trump and his co-defendants face serious consequences, they are likely to continue with similar fraudulent behavior. That is quite a strong caution and highlights a serious message about holding people accountable. It is not just about what happened in the past. It is also a warning about what might happen next. Plus, we cannot ignore the potential contempt rulings, which carry significant fines and the risk of jail time. Judge, a totally conflicted judge who just did something that nobody has ever seen, and the press is not happy. I do not imagine they are. They just got thrown out of the courthouse. Nobody has ever seen anything quite like it. Going very well, we have asked for termination of the case. This case should be terminated. This should not go anywhere. It should be terminated right now. And New York State has to build up the system again. New York State cannot let this happen. Cannot let this happen. There were no crimes. We did nothing wrong. So we have reached a pretty intense moment with former President Trump and his hush money trial. The judge is seriously considering jail for Trump after he publicly criticized the jury, marking the 10th time he has been held in contempt. It seems like the fines for breaking the gag order just are not getting through to him, and now the judge is hinting at a possible jail sentence. Looking back to December of 2025, the Supreme Court's ruling made it clear that nobody has the authority to just disregard the law. Reports from the New York Times reveal there were 52 admitted violations of court orders. What really gets my attention is Trump's own words during a Republican retreat. He stated plainly, "You have to win or I am gone," which really shows just how vulnerable he feels politically. The judge's recent ruling has sparked some harsh criticism, especially coming from Palm Beach County, which argued he made errors based on their input and did not even allow a chance to testify. I got a call last week saying they lost a big part of the case, and the trial had not even started yet. Then the narrative shifts back to the judge, described as highly political and conflicted. It is almost surreal how the press has commented on him being thrown out of a courthouse. That is something nobody has seen before. It is quite a situation. They are asking for the case to be terminated altogether, feeling it should not move forward. It is really significant how complicated everything has become. There is an urgent need for accountability tied to this presidency, and it sends a strong judicial message that if serious deterrents are not put in place, we might see more fraudulent activities down the line. This is not just a casual warning. It is a clear warning that deserves our attention. New York State is in a tough spot, having to rebuild its systems yet again because things just cannot keep going like this. They have made it clear no crimes were committed, and they did nothing wrong. Now, here comes the difficult part. Trump finds himself in a real bind. If he goes along with certain demands, he might accidentally shine a light on his financial dealings, which is not ideal. But if he pushes back, he risks some serious legal trouble, even facing sanctions. That is not an easy situation for someone who is supposed to be running a country. To make matters worse, there's a series of warnings and documented missteps hanging over him. It is a classic catch-22. Comply and possibly expose himself even more, or defy and risk facing legal consequences. It is no wonder he is struggling to find a clear way forward. On another note, there is this interesting point about his political survival. Trump has told House Republicans that if they do not win, he is out of there. That is quite a statement about how he sees his political future, showing just how much he is banking on keeping a majority in the House, especially with the midterms in 2026 coming up. His words really show his vulnerability. Everything seems to hang on this congressional majority for him to stay viable. Now, if we break this whole situation down, there are three important aspects to consider. First off, there is the governance side of things. We need to look at how the combination of court decisions, the fear of possible incarceration, and financial issues affect his ability to govern. Next, we have three potential paths Trump could take: resignation, impeachment, or the 25th Amendment. Each of these routes has significant implications for realistically removing him from office, given the current landscape of accountability. Lastly, we cannot ignore how this mirrors what happened with Nixon. Understanding that historical context might give us some clues about presidential accountability today. So, as we look into these three areas, it is clear that we are dealing with a pretty complex situation, one that shows a presidency under considerable strain, with many layers to unravel. The Supreme Court has already struck down some major parts of the administration's legal strategies, and that is just the beginning of it. The current situation surrounding the presidency is really concerning. When you look at all the court rulings coming down, it is clear that the challenges facing this administration are significant. Just recently, the courts have pushed back on various claims of authority, and a decision related to emergency powers really pointed out that the administration's legal basis is essentially non-existent. With strict financial repercussions looming and official warnings about possible jail time, it paints a concerning picture. It is hard to ignore the implications of these decisions. They show just how strained the current governance really is. This is not just a hypothetical discussion. These are real rulings that affect how the presidency functions. The numerous independent judges, each reflecting on different aspects of these cases, have all come to critical conclusions that highlight the pressing need for accountability. For example, Judge Engoron has clearly stated that Trump submitted false financial statements and seems unwilling to accept the legal findings against him. Then there is Judge Kaplan, who believes monetary penalties are not doing enough to deter bad behavior. Additionally, the D.C. Circuit Court made it clear that no president has the right to break the law without consequences. When you bring all these findings together, it creates a serious moment in the judicial world. Moreover, there is the question of how the president could potentially step down or be removed from office. Think resignation, impeachment, or the 25th Amendment. Each of these options has its own implications for accountability. Voluntary resignation in particular feels significant since it would suggest a self-imposed accountability, likely driven by a desire to sidestep more complex legal and political troubles ahead. Reflecting on history, Nixon's resignation stands out as a relevant example of what we might be seeing unfold now. He chose to step down when he was facing intense scrutiny, and the parallels are quite striking. The impeachment process is actively being discussed with articles ready to be filed that could pave the way for accountability through Congress. We also have the option of invoking the 25th Amendment, which involves the cabinet and the vice president, offering another route to accountability right from within the administration. So we are looking at three distinct avenues for potential removal, all backed by historical precedent. When I think about these established impeachment discussions and compare them to the experience with Nixon, it really paints a picture of what might be on the horizon. Nixon's resignation was a result of various court rulings that undermined his claims of privilege, a growing momentum in Congress for impeachment, declining public support, and even some defections within his own party. Drawing parallels between Nixon's documented situation and what we are seeing today with Trump highlights some striking similarities. Looking at Trump, there are clear signs of division within his own party and several court decisions that seem to undermine his stance. This creates a scenario that resembles those past moments of accountability. It suggests that we are not just engaging in hypotheticals. Significant consequences could very well be on the way. Even though the formal structure of the presidency remains intact, the ongoing legal challenges are making it tough for effective governance. This constrained governance is an important aspect of the overall narrative. It is crucial to grasp what these legal findings mean for constitutional governance, especially now as institutions push for accountability. When courts start imposing serious consequences and limit executive claims, it sets up an environment where a presidency can face genuine operational constraints. The combination of congressional pressure and legal challenges really shapes what is currently unfolding. We are in a serious moment of political history, and it is something that undoubtedly deserves our attention. This whole situation really highlights some serious issues about governance and accountability. There is this difficult combination of limited executive power, restrictions on authority, and threats of imprisonment or significant fines. It is genuinely concerning, especially since this combination of diminished power brings about major challenges for keeping things in check. Let us break it down into 4 key points to give you a clearer picture of what is going on. First, Judge Engoron has made it clear that Trump and his co-defendants could be looking at more fraudulent schemes down the road unless something changes. This comes with a significant bill of $355 million and a 3-year ban on doing business in New York. It definitely raises questions about accountability and how Trump manages his business. It has been a significant topic in legal circles lately. This ruling actually serves as a permanent note in the judicial system, shining a light on significant financial wrongdoing. It sends a strong message about any fraudulent activities moving forward and might even change how we perceive presidential business dealings. Then there is the difficult position Trump finds himself in. If he follows the rules, he will have to reveal his finances. But if he chooses to defy the ruling, he could face serious legal repercussions, including potential penalties. The situation escalates with court warnings about possible imprisonment and preparations for asset seizures, complicating this accountability issue even further. Looking back at history, especially during the Nixon years, we can see how a string of court rulings and the push for impeachment created a similar climate of accountability, ultimately leading to resignation. This narrative puts everyone in a tough position, drawing real parallels to past political challenges and showing just how complicated it can be for someone facing these serious legal hurdles. Public approval for Trump has taken a noticeable dip, and members of his own party are starting to pull back. There is a lot going on lately with Trump, and it is really starting to look like we are seeing some serious accountability pressures piling up, much like what Nixon faced. As we watch the situation unfold, there are a few key things to keep an eye on that might help us figure out where it is all headed, whether that is resignation, impeachment, or even the use of the 25th Amendment. One big area to watch is what the Supreme Court or appellate courts decide regarding Trump's executive powers. Any changes in that arena could really shake things up, especially since he's already dealing with rulings about tariffs and military authority. Then there is the appeals process with Judge Engoron, which could add to the financial troubles he might have, particularly with ongoing fraud allegations. And of course, we cannot forget about Judge Kaplan. If he finds any new violations, that could lead to some serious consequences, potentially even incarceration. Breaking it down a bit more, Judge Engoron has made it clear that without some major changes, Trump is likely to find himself in a similar legal predicament again. Recently, he was ordered to pay $355 million and is barred from running his business in New York for 3 years. That is a significant legal blow. Judge Kaplan has also noted that just hitting Trump with financial penalties has not done much to prevent violations. He issued a written warning declaring that future violations could lead to incarceration, and that was reported by NPR. On top of everything, the Supreme Court made a significant ruling back in December of 2025 in a 6-3 vote, which reshaped the landscape of executive authority. The New York Times highlighted 52 instances where court orders have been ignored, pointing to a pretty clear pattern of defiance. It is almost notable that Trump's own words, "You have to win or I am gone," seem to reflect a direct acknowledgement of just how politically vulnerable he really is. When I think about Nixon's presidency, it really gives me some perspective on how things might unfold today. We are in a tough spot for Trump right now. He has got to either play by the rules or face some serious legal trouble, and there is really no way around it. All these factors are stacking up, pointing to some serious complications ahead for him, especially with the recent court rulings in play. It is quite a complex set of legal issues that cannot be overlooked. We are witnessing something significant right now. There is this collection of court decisions highlighting fraudulent activities, along with strong findings that remind us all that authority has its limits when it comes to following the law. With 52 admitted legal violations on the record, it is clear that a complex set of rulings is coming down from multiple courts. This situation is notably reminiscent of the Nixon era, where there was a distinct path of accountability for presidents. It feels like we might be heading towards something similar again. All of this could lead to some serious outcomes, whether that results in resignation, impeachment, or even invoking the 25th Amendment. In the meantime, we are grappling with a mix of partisan pressure, legal obstacles, and concerns about executive power, and it is shaping up to be a significant governance challenge. I will definitely be keeping an eye on how everything unfolds, and I would love to hear what you think about all the documented changes happening.